I wanted to say this at the beginning of the show, so maybe this will get cut.
It in.
Maybe we'll say this at the beginning of the show.
Stick it in there.
You can find Veep at HBO, and you can find us on Instagram at Midnight Local Pod, and you can find us on TikTok at Midnight Local Pod. If anyone is out there listening who is following us on TikTok already, we are locked out of the Midnight Local account and are now Midnight Local Pod. So follow us there.
POTUS is not going to be running for a second term.
Oh my God.
I'm going to run.
Hey guys, this is Midnight Local. I am Greg.
And I am Meredith.
And today we're talking about a lot of stuff today. We're talking about the world. And I guess we watched Veep so that we could talk about the world today on Midnight Local.
We're contributing to, I saw that there was a 353% viewership spike on Monday for the first season of Veep.
Wow. I'm surprised.
So I think a lot of people see the parallels. A lot of people, there are some some really surprising parallels that become apparent.
I think too is that we want to let people know what those parallels are. Kamala Harris is now the Democratic nominee because Joe Biden just dropped out of the race. And that's where we're at right now for, posterity, because people could listen to this anytime they wanted to.
It's true. I'm starting to edit these episodes and I am new to this, so they're going a little bit slowly. So hopefully this will come out soon after that news, but we'll see. I can do my best.
Round of applause for Meredith, who is now an editor.
Yeah, right? Working on it.
We're self-employed.
That's right. There's a theme here.
I'd never seen Veep, so you told me,
Never
Greg,
once when it was...
you got to watch the Veep, and I'd never watched it before, so
yeah.
I watched it. Meredith, I don't even know what to say here. I watched first episode of Veep. I feel like I have very limited context with which to talk about Veep, because I've never seen it before, and I've seen one episode, and I'm going to tell you, let me just tell you my unadulterated impressions of watching this episode. And I would say right flat out, I don't think if this was live, if I was catching this when it aired on HBO, I don't think I'm going to stick with it. I don't think so. I don't think I'm going to stick with it. The first thing that jumps out at me, and I don't know the answer to this, and honestly, this is the kind of information that's remarkably difficult to find. Was this shot in 4:3?
No.
No, it was shot in 16:9.
Yeah.
It feels so claustrophobic.
Well,
and so shaky. I feel nauseous looking at it.
It was in the era of The Office, Parks and Rec, but also
I don't think a little though. It's so tight. Everything is so tight.
I don't think this show wants you to feel comfortable at all.
Does it want me to watch?
I mean, a lot of people did. So I can understand that. I can definitely understand shaky cam. It's not everybody's stuff. People didn't watch Office for that reason. People didn't watch Parks and Rec for that reason. It's really off-putting for some people.
That's such a style of its era. I have a feeling that as the show progresses, the camera gets more and more steady when you get towards the later seasons.
That could be possible. One interesting thing about watching pilots, and this, whether or not this comes out before some of the others we've done, is yes, we're missing a lot of context, and you can't really speak to. I'm trying to remember. I don't hold those things in my memory as well, but I have watched the entire series. I can't remember if it eases up on that or not.
And if you watched it through over a period of years, you'd never notice. So it'd be too subtle. You'd have to binge it, or even just watch episode 1 and then watch episode 60 or something.
I mean, I think I've done both. I think I watched it while it was out, and then Ray and I binged it a couple years back.
You're a rewatcher?
Oh, yeah.
I got no rewatch in me. I can't do it.
Ever? Well, you've seen movies over and
over again.
I'll watch
a movie over and over, but I can't watch a TV show.
Not a TV show.
Again. I have no interest. I don't know why.
Well, you're rewatching The X-Files.
The thing about that is that I watched The X-Files when I was quite young, when it was on TV, and I don't really remember 90% of it. And I missed a lot of it because it was broadcast and I had things to do. And I probably fell off somewhere season 2, 3. I think the last thing I remember, and I don't know when it happens, is the black oil crawling into somebody's eye. And I think that's got to happen in season 3 or 4 at the latest.
Maybe I'm a gifted forgetter.
Yeah.
I rewatch things and I'm I totally forgot about that.
That's funny. Yeah. I don't know.
But then there's comfort shows that I remember every beat of and I watch anyway.
I don't have that. I got no comfort. I got no comfort shows. My wife will rewatch Drag Race of all things.
Like old seasons?
Yeah, she'll rewatch Drag Race, which
Okay.
I feel like must have very low replay value because it's a game show ostensibly. I don't know.
I think the entertainment, yeah, I could see that people going back and starting from the beginning again, because these people over time. If you're like following Drag Race and you're following them outside of the show, you get to know them better, and so it's fun to see them in the earlier seasons.
Okay, I can see that.
I've rewatched Survivor, which
I never watched
is
Survivor.
kind of the same,
I thought it
the
was
same
awful.
vein.
I remember I had friends who were in a Survivor, and I was just always like, "What is wrong with you?" So Meredith, what's wrong with you? I just insult the things you love.
No, I love to watch interpersonal relationships play out. That's all that Survivor is. I love to watch people
It's exhausting.
lose their ability to objectively break down a situation. And I find it endlessly fascinating, the inner relationships between people on that show.
I think that the show put me off because I felt like it had nothing to do with survival.
That's
and it was
correct.
Just
right.
Popularity contest, and
not popularity always, but yeah, if you're coming to a survival show, 100% not the show for you.
Let's talk about Veep some more.
Sure.
So the shaky camera is an issue for me, not the end of the world. And I don't want to talk only about things I hate. Don't worry, I have positives about it. I hate almost every character so much that I don't know if I can spend all that much time with them.
Yeah. That's again the show doing exactly what it set out to do.
It's really interesting because it seems to be pushing me away.
Okay, well,
I'll break them down
second.
really quickly.
You want to break down the characters?
The characters I hate the most.
Okay. Yeah, the most.
The characters I hate the most are Amy.
Go for it.
I can't stand Amy.
So Amy, do you recognize Amy? I'm going to tell you where she's from.
I recognize her, but I don't remember what she's from.
She's My Girl.
Oh, I never watched My Girl.
Never,
No. I was aware of it, but that was like a movie
needs
for my
his
sister.
Glasses, Greg. How are you millennial without knowing he needs his glasses?
He can't see without his glasses.
Again, I had things to do.
Yeah, okay. I had things to do. Like watching every other movie that exists.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know. People were like, "Oh, you gotta watch this movie," and all the people who told me that were girls, and I was like, "I'm not gonna watch some chick movie." And two, it was like, it's so sad. I was like, "Why would I want to subject myself to that? Why would I want that?" It sounds awful. I don't want that. So I don't like her character. I don't like Dan.
I'm genuinely sorry that my arrival here has caused you to become so self-conscious.
Obviously, I hate Dan. I hate Amy.
Go fuck yourself.
And I hate Jonah.
I meant that more as a slight against the power of recollection of the electorate, and not as an attack on the potency of your campaign.
Yeah, okay, that's correct.
I hate the shit out of them.
If you liked any of those people, I would question your personality.
And I'm seeing on IMDb that they're on the whole series, which means any hopes of them having a horrible car accident and dying are dashed. So it's going to be hard for me to stick with. I like Gary. I like Tony Hale's character a lot.
I do a serious job. I'm next to the Veep more than any other human being. I'm her moon.
And I feel like, at least in the pilot, he is extremely competent in a way that the three characters I don't like are not. Well, Jonah's actually quite competent, but evil.
I think Dan is. Like, Dan's working his way in. He's conniving, but he shows himself to be competent in the first episode.
All the conniving, it drives me nuts. But and I guess that's a good point. Those three are the most conniving characters that I've been introduced to so far. Whereas Gary doesn't seem, at least in the pilot, he doesn't seem to have a conniving bone in his body. He's just genuinely very good at his job, though awkward. And that's the vibe you get in episode 1. I don't know if that holds up or even if that's intentional. That might have just been like, oh, you got that? Well, you didn't really mean it to write it that way.
Yeah, no, if you're on anybody's side throughout this series, like as a human being, I would say it's Gary's.
And then I love Matt Walsh. I am a UCB alum, so therefore I must love Matt. Not that I ever met him or did anything with him at all. So Mike's character, I don't have really a good read on Mike's character. He seems like he's supposed to be like almost like a throwback to like a 1930s newspaper reporter character in a weird way. Like that's the vibe I get from him. He's like, no nonsense, I gotta get the press.
Well, no, he's flop sweat, and he also like he makes it
what
very.
now?
He's flop sweat. Like he's just always
What is flop sweat?
Flop sweat, nervous perspiration caused by a fear of failure before an audience.
When you just like, he is just like always sweaty, always a little like moist looking. Like he's just always
Is that a
that
theater
guy.
term? Like you pulled
No,
that out.
you know what
like,
flop
this is the flop
sweat
sweat
is.
character. No, nobody knows what flop sweat is.
All right, well, we'll see. We'll see if people know in the comments. But he makes a very clear point to say that he doesn't want to know what's going on. He doesn't want to know anything.
You know my motto, I don't want to know. Anyways, what motto? I don't have a motto.
He's the press guy, and he would much rather be completely ignorant of anything that's real. So
Well,
he doesn't have to get caught.
Yes, and that's what he said in episode 1. But I feel like that's a sign of competence.
Oh, it is kind of.
Right.
But also not being able to handle your job while knowing what's going on, I think is a sign of incompetence.
Is he bad at doing his job?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if anyone could be good at doing his job.
I get the vibe that, like, my job is to lie to people.
Yes.
And the fewer lies I have to tell, and the more things I believe are true that are lies, the better, because that reduces the bridge that I have to span. Like, that strikes me as a guy who's like a veteran of this business and knows what he's doing to say, I don't want to be in this room. Get me the fuck out of here. But,
well, and he's likable to you immediately, which a press-facing person should come across that way. If he came across as unlikable, that wouldn't be very good. Like, you're sympathetic to him in some way, and I think he needs that to be able to be forgiven for not knowing anything.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And Selena, I mean, obviously everybody loves Julia Louis-Dreyfus, but she feels like a neutral force in the show in a lot of ways. Like, I know it is a show that, like, she's the Veep. The show is named for her. She is ostensibly the protagonist of the show. I didn't sit there with a stopwatch, though. It feels more to me like her character is the eye of the storm that the real show characters are orbiting around. Like, she is there simply to be the motivating force in the plot, and also to be funny and good.
To be Julia Louis-Dreyfus,
and
of course.
And she's obviously super cynical. Like, that's immediately you get that impression from her. I don't have a strong opinion on her. I would stick around. Let me put it that way. I will stick with this show for Selena, for Mike, and for Gary. My 3 heroes of the series, in hopes that they will defeat the villains, Amy, Dan, and Jonah.
Oh, wow. I love that. I love that that's where you're at after episode 1. I actually just think that this speaks so well to the format of the show, because she's your politician. Like, you should take longer to get a read on her. In the first episode, you should kind of like her. Like, you should be pulling for her, not really sure, is she the meanest version of herself, somewhere in the middle? I think the whole show, that is the path of the show, is getting to know if there is something in Selena behind the narcissism that has been caused by being a politician, or caused her to be a politician.
Yeah, that's what I thought that's an interesting way that you put it, that she has become a narcissist because that is what the job demands, or maybe it's the other way around.
As a viewer, you're always pulling for the other way around, and
you're not sure.
I'm sure at the end. I'm not sure if the whole audience is sure at the end.
I guess maybe as a viewer, and this is just, again, episode 1 impressions, I feel like I can cut that character a lot of slack because, like, that's the level she's operating on, right? Like, she's the vice president. Was she formerly a senator? I don't really recall what she was before. She was a senator, not a congresswoman.
Well, so this is a good time to sort of talk about some of the parallels people are making with Kamala, is that she's a blue state senator of Maryland. So strongly blue state, not like a state where you
wait, Selena or
Selena.
Okay.
So,
let's say, like, wait a minute, was she senator from Maryland after being AG? It's like, no,
Selena. So they keep her pretty party agnostic, besides, like, in the first episode that she's working on some clean energy jobs.
The cornstarch silverware that melts in coffee.
Which is an amazing moment.
It's funny.
Her looks
at those things.
It's so funny. You walk away knowing that she's probably a Democrat, but they never come out and flat out say it. You never really see the president on the show, except for maybe a glimpse here or there. I think he's in there's a hostage crisis and he's in the Situation Room in one episode. But other than that, it's all centered around her and her team.
Parks and Rec also played it pretty like the only character that anything about his political affiliation is the Ron Swanson character, whom I was going to call him a Republican, but he's not. He's like an anarcho-capitalist ultra-libertarian who for some reason applied for and got a job in local government, which it's just one of those incongruencies that always pisses me off about that show. And he's likable. Those guys are super likable. But I suppose it was a different time. But other than that, you get nothing, and except for the fact that Leslie Knope is obsessed with Joe Biden, which I guess might make her a Democrat, but it's never brought up as being for policy issues. It's more that like her character finds him weirdly attractive.
Sure, yeah. They never really answer the question fully.
Of course not. Why would you do that?
Yeah.
Why would you piss off half of your audience?
Yeah, absolutely. So they both served as blue state senators. They both ran in the primary that landed them the role as Veep. Both the first female Veep in the world that they're in, and both of their presidents drop out or do not seek re-election after
which
their
I
first
shouldn't
term.
know yet, but we know. It's
well,
okay.
We know, and for the points of this,
I'm so ignorant. Was Kamala a senator in California? I thought she was just the attorney general.
No, she was also a senator.
Okay.
Yeah, if you're Kamala, you would hope that is where the parallels stop.
Yeah.
But they'd also be impossible to make because you only see Selena behind the scenes, donor dinners. You see her have with private conversations with heads of state. You see her writing her own memoir. Like, we're never going to see Harris that way. We see the politician, and you do get the sense a lot of the time, like, people love her, and you're kind of like, how could that be, watching her as a person? And I think that's where the show makes people deeply uncomfortable. Like, are all politicians assholes?
Apologizing to that fucktard. God. Okay, it's fine. Mr. Burton, I'm so sorry. We're having a complicated day here.
Okay. In episode 1, I'm assuming it gets there. Again, impressions from episode 1. It does not feel like this show is yet even about politics or commentary on the political apparatus. It feels like it's a commentary on like dysfunctional office dynamics and the fact that she is vice president and all of those important things, and that this show takes place in the American political apparatus feels like it's a secondary concern at this point. I assume that it moves away from that vibe.
Maybe.
The show gets its legs, as they do.
Yeah, I also think that, like, sure, bigger things happen, like the hostage crisis. There's, like, episodes where you think maybe the president is sick and she'll have to take over. There's bigger things. But I do think that this idea that you accidentally signed the sympathy card with the wrong name, and someone has to go find it, and you have to send someone to go fix that situation. Then you get the card back, and then the problem is that the president's already signed it. So if you want to replace the card, you have to forge the president's name, and everything is always snowballing. And it's these little things that publicly facing are huge, ridiculous issues. And I think that is probably more likely what it's like behind the scenes than like people sitting down having serious conversations about policy issues.
I have heard people say that the show is closer to the truth than Americans would be mostly comfortable with, but I've never heard anybody elaborate on the specifics of how and why that is. Oh, and that also might have been, I might be crossing wires. That might have actually been about this show that would be equally, I think, or very nearly equally viable to pair up here, House of Cards, because he's a vice president who also becomes president.
That's interesting. I mean, where it's persona non grata with.
Yeah, sure. That was a good show.
I loved that show while it was on air.
Did eventually get to a point where I was like, okay, we've heightened this whole scenario to a point now where it's like, I don't know, you have broken my suspension of disbelief now. Now we have gone very far.
Right. Well, that show lives in such deep, dark drama, which I find unrealistic. I think that the people probably communicate with each other in real life more like this show.
I think so.
People are funnier.
Well, they try to be funny.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's moments like House of Cards, but like, I think this type of chaos feels, to me, in my life experience, much more genuine.
I feel like, and this is like a general complaint about these kinds of shows, is that everybody is way more ready to engage in direct conflict with each other than they would be in real life. And I gather that for like the vast majority of people, that's TV, Greg. That's what people want. That's the drama. My favorite shows don't work that way. Just that strains my suspension of disbelief, which, as we have established before, is very weird. But like the patter and the direct verbal knifing at each other in this, I don't understand. So none of these characters, except for Tony Hale's character, seem competent enough for anybody to put up with this shit in an office. You would fire them. That for me, like right away, I'm just like, meh. It's hard to watch because like you signed the wrong name on the paper. That was your job today. You did nothing else today. You fucked up that because you were distracted. I am reducing your portfolio of responsibilities and possibly removing you from my staff. We're phasing you out. I'm sorry. Like I don't know why you would put up with, hey, you two are fighting. I'm picking one of you, and then the other one, whoever's bad at this, is out. Like, I you know, like it.
The level of incompetence in this office is staggering.
I do think the idea is that there's so much chaos happening all the time, and you get the idea that Amy was her campaign manager and has been with her for a really long time and has probably done enough good things for her. Or it's hard to find people you trust in that situation that aren't going to backstab you. Like, I think because of the constant chaos, someone's always fucking something up.
I guess. Has that been our experience working together?
Actually, no. Well, I was thinking a lot about my past working experiences while thinking about this show. And you talk a lot on How to Drink, and you've talked on this show about being an editor, about us working together and you as an editor. And this show to me is like what would happen when I left the edit suite. When you go to the production room, like not this heightened, obviously.
In the edit suite?
No, but like you, so when you go into production, it's like, what do you think I mean?
I don't know. There was no sniping. It was very chill.
That's what I mean. So when you leave, like, right, my job was to make sure that your world stayed as calm as possible so you could focus on your work.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah. So when I went back to my room, it's, you know, not as much where I was at, but backstabbing for jobs, like begging for money, kissing ass to the clients, changing decisions based on your boss's ego. Like you're always in crisis mode. My job was to take all of the things that waste people's time and absorb them so that your time can be spent doing the work. Because if someone doesn't do that, no one gets to do the work. And
I don't have the patience to be that person.
So Selena is the only person in this case who gets, everyone around her is trying to suck up all of the chaos so that she can go in a room and laugh and giggle and talk to someone. But because she's a politician, she's in the chaos too. They're supposed to be shielding her from it, but she also causes a lot of the chaos. So for me, like the show is like hugely cathartic because watching that on screen is like, oh, I'm not crazy. And laugh at it, to have the moments where like, because, you know, obviously the quippy one-liners don't happen in the production room. That's where it's a sitcom and it's a written sitcom.
I hate that.
I know you do.
I hate that. What's his name? That Aaron Sorkin. He's the guy. I hate that Aaron Sorkin dialogue. I fucking hate it.
West Wing's another political drama.
Yeah, and I feel like it sets the mold for a lot. I don't know.
So that's what pulls it into fantasy and makes it watchable. If it didn't have that, for me, it would just be like watching bad things that brought up bad memories. I guess like the quippy one-liners make fun of it. It's like watching someone make fun of your bad situation, which I guess helps, brings levity.
I think that we're gonna have to we're gonna tit for tat here at some point. Now that you made me watch Veep, I'm gonna make you watch Detectorists at some point so that you can
From what you've described, I feel like I like it.
Oh yeah, I think you will too.
Yeah.
Or Ted Lasso, right? Like Ted Lasso is another, like both of those are British shows and they're kind of the same mold where it's just, it somehow does it, right? Like they pull off a excellent comedic drama about interpersonal relationships without ever resorting to underhanded, conniving characters and snappy dialogue that, you know, nobody could actually speak in. Both of those shows do feel pretty authentic. With the exception of in Ted Lasso, like so many of the characters almost seem too good-natured in some ways.
Oh, I love Ted Lasso. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But they're quippy, but they're likable. Yeah, I would say that is the opposite. You've got same level. If there was like a diagram of dialogue heavy, dialogue light, likable characters, unlikable characters.
Oh yeah, you got to do like
Veep
the
is
political
here.
cross,
Like
right?
Veep is here. And, yeah, exactly. Because there's a lot of dialogue in that show, but it's charming.
It's all dialogue. It's taped theater.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that there's a whole ton of like visual storytelling, honestly, right? Like it's a talking heads show.
I was thinking about like the differences in the stuff that you like and I like is that I'm a musical theater kid and you are, I don't know, if to describe it as opera, like you want less dialogue, more, you want to see everything. If there's no reason to tell you something you do not want to be told.
No, I don't want to. I feel like actors are bad mostly at their job. And the way you make them better is by letting the camera talk and making the act. And honestly, this is more of probably really a commentary on writers. Actors are great at the job. They come in and do what they're told. Writers want to write too much a lot of times. There's a whole school of writing for cinema that comes from the talky parts and not from the camera parts, you know? And I think that the camera should speak much more than the mouths. And then everything is better when you do that. That's my personal opinion.
So like two thoughts on that for me is that musical theater is all useless talking a lot
All
of time.
talk.
Yeah.
And then if we go up to the next tier, we go straight into singing. We go right above talk.
You sing an entire song about one plot point, right?
Yeah.
Right. For entertainment value. And then my second thought on that is like when I think about things that happen in my life, I think about conversations I had with people. I do think about the words. I think about all the things that were said. I will sit with my friends and talk for hours. But so like having a talky, dialogue-y heavy thing doesn't bother me because I feel that a lot in my life.
Yeah, but I think that's real life. And it does, you know, but to turn that into a movie, it's a little bit like that student film, you know, the thing that the student film that every college student in film school has to make, which is we should just make a movie about us. Like,
right.
This is so good, right? We should just do this. Hey, wait a minute, Meredith. Wait a minute. There's a little bit of what's going on here.
My life is a sitcom.
Again.
I know, we are, yes. Except we went to the reality side of things.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry to tell you, your life is not a sitcom. Somebody we both knew described emphatically their life as being actually Sex in the City, like numerous times. And I was just going to be like, I don't think it is. I'm sure that there is sex in the city and that you have friends with money, but I bet it's not. I bet it doesn't have the same pacing.
No, probably not.
I bet it doesn't fit into a 30-minute time slot. Just a hunch.
My mom told me when I moved to the city, you think your life's going to be like Friends? It's not going to be like Friends.
Yeah. I probably thought my life was going to be like an 80s Woody Allen movie and that somebody was going to get murdered.
Oh, okay. That tracks. That makes a lot of sense.
I wonder now, I just want to go back to that though. It's so funny. Like so many people see, however unrealistic, their own life reflected in sitcoms and like highly stilted, you know, like the sitcom is theater. Like it's theater, you know. You could easily sing, and they have done in a sitcom. It's done on a proscenium. They film it, you know, like it's a set with one wall ripped off and an audience stuck over there.
Right. You've never seen the wall next to the door in Friends. It does not exist.
Yeah. Well, it's actually, Friends is a really funny story, which is totally non sequitur. But when they rescaled it for widescreen because it had been overscanned on set live for 4.3, they went back to the negatives and they were like, oh, cool, there's a widescreen negative here. But like, it's all behind the scenes. Like the widescreen is like light stands and grips and stuff. It's like,
I wonder if that footage exists anywhere.
Oh, that's, if you go watch Friends in widescreen, that's what it is.
Oh, you see it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. There's like a whole thing where there's like a hole cut in Joey's apartment window for like props to pass through or through the wall and stuff. Like it's absurd, apparently. You can look this up. Like when we were younger people, I think they even call this mapping, like it's a psychological phenomenon. I often felt like people I was interacting with in the city when I was in my 20s, they seemed to talk to you as if there was a live audience somewhere. Like it felt like I would always just be like, who are you performing for? That's a really strange way to phrase that or say that or to behave even, you know. That's big. That was big. The audience is here. There's no back of the house to play to. And I wonder if like some parasitic thing happens where you watch a sitcom and map yourself into that. Oh, that's just like us. And then some feedback loop happens and then you become like this performative subhuman. You know, like this thing that's just like walking television. God.
I've watched people get very into television shows and then start to exhibit behavioral markers of their favorite characters.
Yeah. Not just like the like, oh, I picked up a phrase from a show, but like the pacing, the rhythm, the patter, you know, like.
I feel like that's a very millennial experience, and I feel like the younger generations are much more, how does the internet see me? Living everything for someone could be filming me somewhere.
Whoa, yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. That could be right. Yeah. We had, and man, I wonder does everybody have an audience, an imaginary audience? Going back generations, you know, like the Gen X and the Boomers and stuff like that. Was there an imaginary audience that they were unaware that they were imagining? But like, you know, I mean, like, because that's like, woo. If you told somebody they were doing that, they'd be very upset.
Well, let's play that out. Like, what would it be for Gen X and Boomers?
Sitcoms, right, span all those generations, so that's a big part of it. But I mean, if you think about like, you know, did a lot of like Gen Xers like choose to live their life as if they were you know, in the Breakfast Club or in Slackers, you know, like how much was the dog wagging the tail there, or the tail wagging the dog rather?
Gen Xers was like the generation of huge stars. We just don't have stars the way that, like, we grew up with it because we're kind of older millennials, but Madonna's, Michael Jackson's, Julia Roberts for us. I know there's big stars now, but is there anyone that's that big?
It's real possible that we're old and out of touch.
Yeah.
Is Zendaya that big? Is
for
her
flashes
boyfriend?
of time?
Is Chalamet?
Tom Holland.
Tom Holland.
Maybe Taylor Swift right now. But...
my wife somehow was sheltered from pop culture in some portion growing up. When I explained to her like the insanity that Michael Jackson, how large Michael Jackson loomed, and I think maybe it's because she couldn't watch Fox, and for some reason I think Fox TV did a lot with Michael Jackson as well. But like. Yeah, man. Michael Jackson was like a walking god, you know, like.
But I was also a shelter kid, and I knew Michael Jackson from Free Willy. I knew who Michael Jackson was big time.
Captain EO. You know, Moonwalker. Thriller, obviously.
Still Thriller, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, and those were movies. You know, Thriller was directed. It's a 40-minute or 30-minute movie directed by John Landis. If you've ever seen the full and uncut version of Bad. It's like a 33-minute movie directed by Scorsese where there's no singing for like the first 3/4 of it.
You and I were stuck in an office once till 3 a.m. waiting for exports or something. And we definitely watched Bad all the way through at least once.
Oh yeah. Because it's crazy to see it. It's almost like forgotten. But you know, to say like, I don't know if that was the era of the biggest stars. 2 thoughts on that. One, I want to come back to this. I've heard people say that the leading man is no longer a thing. And I think that might be true. I think that what also might be true is that...
That's boomers, leading man.
Yeah, and that the concept of a leading man has changed a lot. But I would also say, too, is that, like, our stars... I mean, even the stars that we grew up with in the 80s and 90s and even before, whatever, nothing compared to the golden age of Hollywood. Nothing. I mean, like, truly nothing compared to that. I don't recall, you know, or Beatlemania, you know, people literally like ripping the clothes apart on famous people's bodies.
And Elvis.
Like, yeah, exactly. Just like, I'm gonna assault him now because I love him so much. What is that? We're gonna gang rape him. Like, what was the goal there? I'm gonna get a shred of fat clothing.
Storm the stage.
But like when you had, you know, 4 film studios who controlled distribution and the magazines and the press. You know, these, and it's crazy too, is that, like, although a lot of them were making very good money, the stars of their day, but like they were on contract, you know, they weren't like picking movies to do. It was just like, all right, Jack Warner, I'm here for work. What movie you putting me in today? Okay, I'll go do that. You know, like they were like bottom of the totem pole in so many ways, except that they got to look like the top.
That's Singing in the Rain. That's why I love that
100%.
movie. It's a perfect depiction of that. And the idea that Debbie Reynolds' character wouldn't know him is so outlandish when he lands in her car.
But she does know him.
She does, but she's the quintessential leading man time period.
I watch a lot of movies from the 30s and like pre-code and musicals. I love Busby Berkeley musicals because they're so cinematic. It's funny. It's like the one kind of musical that I'm obsessed with because they're pure cinema, right? They're so visual, those musical numbers. They're just, there's no dialogue in most of it. It's just the singing and the dancing and you know, for like 30 minutes, we're going to do kaleidoscope patterns and frankly, a lot of upskirts. I'm going to mark that so you can insert that shot. The
upskirts or the
patterns. Upskirts, absolutely. We got to titillate the audience. You don't want to not have the upskirts. They knew what they were doing. Let me tell you, they did. They truly knew what they were doing. But like it's Singing in the Rain though, made in 1959, if I'm not mistaken. As somebody who's watched so much pre-code and so much of that early Hollywood stuff, I forget that movie was made in 1959. It feels really true to the era that they are portraying, despite
52.
Being in color. 52 it was?
Yeah. The movie's taking place in the late 20s.
Yeah, it's the birth of sound. It'd be like 29, I think. One of the things about that movie that I love too is Sunset Boulevard came out in 1950 and Singing in the Rain came out in 1952. You can watch Singing in the Rain as a comedic prequel to Sunset Boulevard.
Let's do it. I wanted to, in that context. I love that.
You can. You just have to decide that what's her name is actually Gloria Swanson's character, and it's boy, what a what a crash that is.
And I can't stand him.
All right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up.
That realization makes her character so much more sympathetic to me. I truly feel awful for her. She's a huge piece of shit, but you know, they're coming for her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they are ripping her livelihood right out of her fucking mouth.
Absolutely they are, yeah. She's scared.
Yeah.
What's she going to do? She probably has enough money. Well, maybe not, to your point. Maybe not. Yeah, maybe she's not still doing it.
That's and on top of that, like I was saying, these are studio players. They show up, they got a salary, you know. They weren't paid, hey, this picture, what's my nut for this? Am I going to get $1 million, $3 million? No, you get $2,500 a week to show up to work and make pictures, damn it. Like, that's it.
Man. All right, well, I love where this conversation went, but is there anything to bring it back to?
Well, I want to bring it back to Kamala real quick, since that was the whole idea here, and we touched on this before. Obviously, as you pointed out, there's so many topical is the right word, similarities, superficial similarities between Veep, Selena, and I always want to call her Selena Kyle, but that's Batwoman. Selena
Myers.
Yeah. It'd be be very interesting if it was Selena Kyle, just Batwoman vice president. Or Catwoman. What's wrong with me, Greg? Catwoman. Barbara Gordon is Batwoman. Anyway, other than the superficial, well, I guess this is what I want to know. Do you think Kamala is happy that Veep is in the conversation around her, or very unhappy? And I've only seen the first episode, so I wouldn't know.
I think happy. I think, and here's why. I think that the biggest problem right now is that we have an entertainer running for president. There's nothing that inherently different policy-wise or politically between Harris and Biden. She's his VP.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
The excitement is the story. And I think memes like Veep and like Brat and like all of these things are all welcome.
What's Brat?
You'll Google it after this. But it's a meme that is very popular with the Gen Zers. The Gen Zers are reignited despite their previous grievances, which still apply.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering too, is like she's not planning to distance herself from any of the Biden positions, right? So
that's why no one else wanted to jump into this seat. It's why everyone's jumping behind her. Nobody wants to jump into this seat right now. Everyone wants their shot in 2028.
I had a friend who, and I think he's 100% correct. He was like, absolutely nobody is going to be the person to cut the legs out of a black woman running for president.
Also that's also very true. Yeah. And I mean, I do think she's the only person on the planet that the argument could be made. Y'all went out and voted in the primary. You voted for a Biden-Harris ticket. So you voted for her. Your vote still counts. Nobody else can make that argument.
That's true.
And the money argument that if you donated to Biden-Harris, and now
is that
she
being
still has money.
challenged? I hope that's not being challenged.
I think it will probably be challenged, but boy, they've raised so much money in the past 72 hours. It's
to
crazy.
Overcome that.
So I mean, it'd still be nice to have both, but
oh yeah, absolutely. It's, money talks, man. Money talks.
Yeah.
If you can outspend, I mean, that's generally it, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not a political show, so I'm trying to figure out where we would want to go from here. Vice presidential picks. Do we want to talk about that?
I only think there's two options. So
okay.
And I don't think we need to
Shapiro?
get super political to talk about it. Shapiro, because that wins them, that gets them
Mark
closer to winning Pennsylvania. Kelly, Arizona's a less of an electoral win, but
They're both swings.
Kelly is an astronaut. His wife
Navy captain
was,
too.
Yeah, also a successful politician. His wife has also been subjected to political violence, which the Trump side is going to parade in front of people as much as they possibly can.
Yep.
So having someone who has experienced the same thing on the other side is useful. I don't know who she'll pick between those two, but I would put $1,000 on it being one of them.
I really don't know much at all about Shapiro. He's governor of Pennsylvania. But what I really don't know about, and other people do, I mean, this is just, I don't know. I'm just ignorant about this. The way that elections for governor break down in Pennsylvania, is that a situation where you would only actually need to win Philadelphia and maybe Pittsburgh to wind up governor of Pennsylvania? And
I don't know.
I'm assuming that that's probably true, and I don't know how that. I mean, and I've said this before too. Do people? I guess they do vote based on who the vice president selection is. I mean, yes, people voted for Kamala because they voted for the ticket, but I don't think she was a determining factor for a lot of voters. I just don't. I mean, I just don't know.
I think a couple of things happen in this case. I think because she's a woman, I think it has more of there's a guy here too, it's all okay for the people who need that.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I see what you're saying. You're saying in this case.
But I don't think it makes or breaks votes necessarily, but it can create or deflate excitement.
She does, right. I was thinking, does Selena ever run for president? But you said that she does because her president drops out.
Yeah.
Exactly the same. Wowza. Man, stranger than fiction, huh?
She was interviewed on Pod Save America once, and the reason was Veep started in 2012, and so they had interviewed Jon Favreau and a couple of the team because they went around looking for real funny political scenarios that had actually happened.
Clarify,
based off of
Jon Favreau, speechwriter,
Pod Save, not director. Yeah. One thing that had happened to them was that Barack Obama on the campaign trail landed in the wrong Iowa city for a rally, and they quickly had to fly him to the correct city, and it was a whole kerfuffle, and so they used that on the show. So they were pulling from
headlines,
actual things that had happened in campaigns. I think they interviewed a lot of campaign heads on both sides of the aisle to find these stories. So a lot of it is based in real fuck ups, things that happened. Julia Louis-Dreyfus got breast cancer, and I know that they went down on the show for a couple of years. I think during some of the heavy early Trump years, and when they came back, I think they had a lot of rewriting to do because things had gotten so crazy that it was outpacing the show. Yeah. The show wasn't crazy enough for what was actually happening at that point.
That is an interesting thing to note.
So when she runs, I mean, and they introduce a character that is sort of Trumpian.
We're 4 days out from Vance being picked as VP, and I'm just going to air.
Are we only 4 days out?
5 days, whatever.
Yeah, right.
It's been tight, just for reference. Unless I'm missing something here, his about face from 2016 and where he was to the guy he is now are they worried he's like another George Santos? Like, that seems like somebody who's got a neurological condition, like that he had like some kind of lightning hit his brain and turned him into another human or something. As a person with epilepsy, and who has, temporal lobe epilepsy and can have like a seizure that will radically affect my personality all of a sudden. Seizure, an epileptic discharge, I should say. I honestly wonder if this guy has a damaged brain. And I don't mean that as like an insult. How are you not looking? How are people? From what I understand, actually, quite a bit of the GOP is really pissed about him being the pick.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and apparently even Trump, I just in the New York Times today, it was like Trump is like distancing himself from Vance because he's seeing that this guy's a fucking lunatic.
I could see that being switched up and not remaining the VP pick for him.
That would just to steal that. You got to do it. We got to do the VP swap. We got to swap. The Biden-Harris team, they're changing it up. Give me 3 weeks. I got to do the same thing. And then she's going to change it up again. We're going to one up each other back and forth. I was actually wondering too, is like, and I thought about it and I was like, no, I don't think it could work out that way. But like, is there a concern that like Trojan horse president could become like a political, strategy? Just like announce we're running with this guy
until the very last second,
until like that's testing poorly, let's steal some headlines. I'm out. No, it was always this guy. Boom, air horns. But I think that's probably not likely to become de rigueur.
So do you fall on the side of thinking that this was strategy that was always coming down, or it happened? Okay.
Oh no. I don't think so at all. I think it was hubris. I think that, you know what made me think that, honestly, like why I know it was hubris? It's, did you ever watch, I don't know, 41 or whatever it was? It was the long documentary interview with Bush Sr. He is so pissed that he didn't get a second term. Would not discuss Ross Perot because Ross Perot stole his second term from him. And it makes me realize that presidents get 2 terms. And if they don't get 2 terms, they have failed. If I don't get 2 terms, I have failed flat out. That is my legacy. I need that second term. And so I think that was a big part of it. I also think that nobody wants to admit that their life is over.
Yeah, well, and I've seen that I find that very believable because we've seen it over and over again. I mean, we lost our reproductive rights because of it, arguably. I mean,
I don't follow that line of thought, actually.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg should have retired.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right, cool. I would never go there, and I'm glad you did, because when I bring that up around my house, my wife gets very mad at me.
I mean, it's an enraging situation, but
you can't argue.
It's a hard one to argue with.
How did she think that there was going to be another time to retire? How? I don't know.
Really,
I know people
really
say, oh, well,
unfortunate.
they wouldn't have confirmed anyway, but at that time that she was considering the retirement, they would have confirmed.
Yeah, well, and it was a different situation. A retirement is different from someone dying suddenly.
No, we had the votes to confirm when she was supposed to retire.
Oh, sure.
There was a plan to retire, and then she
before
changed
the
her
midterms.
Mind.
Yeah,
she came out with a book and decided to stay in office.
But I mean, who is it? Dianne Feinstein just died on the Capitol steps, more or less.
And then they sent her to work again, didn't they? Didn't they put her back up there?
Weekend at Bernie's.
I think so.
Chuck Grassley's in his 90s.
Oh, it's so old,
this is not a Republican or Democrat problem. This is a young people need to run for office and get votes problem.
It's a money problem. Because the longer you've been in the game, the more contacts, the more friends, the more trustworthy you are, the more money you can pick up, the more ironclad your candidacy is. Nobody can challenge those war chests, right? And if you're the new kid, unless you're being passed the torch, unless some older person is I'm getting out, I'm retiring, and you're in that district or whatever it is, the money's going to go to the person who gets the money. It's not going to go to you, and you're not going to stand a fucking chance. And I really think that that's the issue there, is it's a money problem.
Well, it's our civic responsibility to do better and go and vote based on not the ads we see on TV.
I don't know. I totally agree, obviously.
It's part of it.
That's a human nature thing. You're talking about just general, 2 things. One, I hate the idea of conspiratorial plots. I don't think that they're real. Like, by and large, no. Like, was this strategy? No, because people aren't that smart. They don't,
Generally, that's where I fall too.
It's only movie characters who can plan 10 moves ahead, and that's because the writer wrote the script backwards. Like, that's not how life is. And generally, too, I don't think people are that smart. I think that you become the media you consume. Your ideas are the ideas that are shoved into your eye holes. And if this person has a higher profile, there's nothing you can do about the fact that it will eat up your brainstem and change your mind a little bit about things.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's why I like Veep over something like West Wing or House of Cards, is that I do think like the chaos, there's so many times on this show where a thing happens and it becomes culturally relevant very quickly, and they go back into the back room and Selena will flat out say, what's my stance on this? What do I believe? What do I think?
Yeah.
It's incredible. And I think more likely than that, that's usually how things happen.
I will agree. And to that point, I definitely think that if the premise of the show is that it's basically a comedy of errors, I think that that is true of life. And in that way, it is probably to kind of second up what you just said. I'm putting that in my lexicon, that this is it probably is truer to life than any other political drama.
Mm-hmm.
Generally speaking, I don't think drama is true to life. I think comedy is much truer to life than drama.
Agreed. 100%. That's why comedy's harder.
Yeah.
It's harder to be believable, to make people laugh, than it is to make people sit there and be like, whoa, dramatic.
Yeah, well, and that's because when people, we're back into human nature. I think when people sit down for a drama, what they're really sitting down for is to have their beliefs about themselves reinforced. And what their beliefs are is that I'm the kind of person who enjoys drama. I have a very large brain, and I enjoy to see drama. And as long as it's a drama, it'll reinforce that.
Sure.
Comedy is much harder because, like, generally speaking, you're defensive. Comedy is like, okay, go ahead, fucking make me laugh. I dare you. I dare you. And that's a big part of it, I think.
Or it makes you defensive. You see something in yourself that is depicted on screen. I don't think you see much of that in drama. I don't think people sit and watch dramas and think like, oh, that scenario feels familiar. But watching this, like, I see a lot of my past work experience, and it's like, it puts you on the defense.
Meredith, we got to wrap this up. We've been talking for an hour. This is too long.
It was good.
We could go back and forth on this forever.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
At some point, we're going to say something that gets us in trouble. So.
Well, it was fun to do something that's relevant. I hope I could cut it quickly enough that it's still relevant.
We'll see you guys next time on another Midnight Logo.
See you later.